Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast. As always, sponsored exclusively from the gaming aspect from Wynn Bet. Here joining me today is Joe Fann from Wynn Bet. He does the Bet to Win gaming podcast. Goes on Mondays and Thursdays. He's also a former NFL beat writer. He used to cover the Seahawks, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Joe, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jeff. Thanks for the invite, man. This is going to be fun.
Of course. It's kind of funny. At the beginning of the week, I do a sneaky free agent ads video hit, like 5 minutes. It goes up on YouTube. We're like, it's kind of thin this week. There's not that much news. Of course, the NFL cycle, being what it is, changes really quickly, and there's all of a sudden a lot of news.
Absolutely. That's how it works. The NFL never sleeps, and they love it that way, even when you're in the dead of the offseason. This country is still talking about the NFL, and that's why it's NFL is king, baby. That's kind of where this country has been at in terms of sports and hierarchies, and that's where I think it'll continue to be for a long time.
I mean, schedule release, they turn into a day, for crying out loud. I mean, it's crazy.
They make something out of the preseason schedule, for crying out loud. So I'm with you.
It's ridiculous. So one of the big items was Alvin Kamara missing practice today with what's termed as a mild knee sprain. We didn't hear a whole lot about that during the game and after the game. Looked fine during the game, and now he's missing practice. And it still might be minor. Still, it's Wednesday practices. We sometimes get a little bit hysterical over injury news when it happens on Wednesday, and it turns out to be very little. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it does turn out to be something too. So what's your take on him? What's your take on what Mark Ingram could do if he gets the job for a full-time basis here?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Ingram's immediately a running back one, or at least on the fringe with the potential of being a running back one. He's a safe play, high floor guy. If Alvin Kamara is out, you look at it from a betting standpoint, and I'm one who thinks that running backs are replaceable. But with what Alvin Kamara does in the passing game, and that passing game is so limited already with the absence of Michael Thomas, Marquez Callaway is solid, but he's not a number one. Traquan Smith, kind of the same thing. So there's not a whole lot there, and you're dealing with the backup quarterback in Trevor Siemian. So Alvin Kamara is the quarterback's best friend. We saw a game a couple of weeks ago against the Seahawks where even when Jameis was still healthy, it was the Alvin Kamara show across the board. And so his usage in both run and pass games is just so immense that his loss would be as difficult to replace as any running back could get, maybe not named Derrick Henry. So, but certainly as fantasy owners, it would make you, look forward to being able to start Mark Ingram.
Right.
From a betting standpoint, it'd probably make you want to avoid the Saints.
Yeah, well, and ironically enough, they're playing the Titans, and we saw, a lot of people were predicting doom and gloom for the Titans. They go into LA, they beat the Rams, they kind of hammer the Rams, to be honest. It wasn't like they were running the ball down their throats or anything. In fact, they weren't able to run the ball without Henry, but the defense rose up and saved the day. They made life tough on Matthew Stafford. Darrell Henderson didn't really get going in the passing game. He was 11 for 55 in the running game, but this is not a pushover run defense for the Titans either. So it could be pretty tricky all around.
Yeah, the Titans defense balled out, particularly on that defensive line. You've got Harold Landry, who's going to get paid. He's going to get the Brinks truck thrown at him this offseason. Danico Autry, and then Jeffrey Simmons, who had 3 sacks all by himself, also forcing an interception. He was absolutely tremendous in that game. I don't know if he won Defensive Player of the Week, but he deserved the award, certainly with how he played on primetime against the Rams. These are different teams, though. I mean, yes, the Saints have a solid defense and a solid defensive line in their own right, but the offense, again, especially if Alvin Kamara is not playing, is so much more limited than what the Titans throw at you. I mean, A.J. Brown is a top 10 receiver in the NFL when he's healthy. Julio Jones isn't the Julio we used to know, but still much better than anything the Saints have split out wide on their offense. And then I think Ryan Tannehill is a significant upgrade over Taysom Hill, or I guess the combination of Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian. So a huge advantage to the Titans, regardless of whether or not Alvin Kamara suits up. But certainly if Alvin Kamara, gets dinged up and doesn't play, then, it makes it a pretty easy pick.
Sure. I'm a Northwestern guy, so I want to be, I want to root for Trevor Siemian, but it wasn't happening. He was really having a hard time creating a whole lot. Might we see more of Taysom Hill this week?
Potentially, that always feels so random, and it's matchup based and kind of what
Right.
Sean Payton's feeling in the moment. And so, if you're looking from a fantasy standpoint, it's not something you can count on. And from a betting standpoint, I don't think it would be something that would cause you to change the line or want a different number. Or if you're feeling one way, maybe potentially switch sides against the spread. He's a talented guy. He's a heck of an athlete, but the usage is too random to really make decisions based on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I think you're right. I think if you're looking from a possible fantasy pickup standpoint, Hill's obviously the ceiling guy. There's actually a chance of him being a winning player, whereas Simeon is just kind of a caretaker in a QB flex league. He's not going to do a whole lot much more than that. Maybe a bye week guy, but I think there are better bye week guys too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the quarterback, then also his weapons. I mean, what is the real upside? You're absolutely touchdown oriented. Where if he's not scoring twice, you're in trouble, and he's not going to give you any of the running yards that Taysom Hill would give you. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, most of the early lines I've seen on Tennessee and New Orleans is it's still Tennessee -3. I'm still seeing like around 44.5 usually for the total. What's your take on this game? What do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Titans. I mean, at this point, we should all be bought in on the Titans. I mean, a consecutive streak of 4 weeks, they beat what was it? The Bills, the Colts, the Rams, and was it the Chiefs as well?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's a heck of a month, regardless of what you think of this Chiefs team. And I'm of the thought they're not very good. Regardless, it's an incredible run, and Mike Vrabel, potentially the leader in the clubhouse for NFL Coach of the Year. It's probably him, Cliff Kingsbury, and John Harbaugh being the leaders in the clubhouse there. But this Titans team is really good, and the Saints will play defense. They will hang around in games. They find a way to make muck games up. But as long as Ryan Tannehill is not turning the ball over multiple times, giving Trevor Siemian and or Taysom Hill short fields, this is a game the Titans should win.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that would muck that up is the Saints always do the opposite of what we expect out of them. But that's about the only thing about that. One other possible X factor involving the Saints is, and it involves a number of different teams, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. He's now a free agent when unclaimed on waivers, and I know the Saints have been mentioned as a possible destination for him. I know he wants to go to the Packers. The Packers' response, they've been after him, but it seems like it's not it's been leaked that it's not the aggressive approach that he was hoping for. If he joins the Saints, I'm really not all that enthused because I don't think they have the passing offense to for him to work himself in. What's your take on OBJ?
I think as much as fans might say, "Oh, we don't want him. We don't want the drama. Whatever. He's a prima donna. He played his way out of Buffalo. No need for the baggage for a player that's not the same guy as he was in New York." Every fan base can be fired up. They bring in OBJ. I mean, the highlights are there. You just go watch him. The production is there. He still age-wise, should be right in his prime. He's got all sorts of chips on his shoulder, or at least he should, in terms of wanting to produce and show that he can still be that number one guy. Because coming up this offseason, he's looking at a big payday if he can show up and play well this offseason. In all likelihood, he's probably gonna have to take like a Juju Smith-Schuster type contract, 1 year prove-it deal. And recoup some of your value that's really been lost. I mean, my goodness, there wasn't a star brighter than OBJ a couple of years back. And the second that trade went down to Cleveland, it's been nothing but downhill. You could never get on the same page with Baker Mayfield. There's probably fault on both sides of that ledger. The Saints absolutely could use that. We could use him. No matter who their quarterback is, you need a player of that caliber. And you're not going to have an opportunity to get a better one than Odell Beckham during the season. I mentioned they're limited options in terms of pass catchers. It's bleak there.
It is.
Even without like Henry Ruggs, you look at the Raiders that still have a better receiving core with Hunter Renfrow and Bryan Edwards, and I throw them out as a team I believe has a really thin receiving core. So I don't think it gets worse than what New Orleans has right now, given that they're in the mix for a wild card spot. Potentially the NFC South, if Tampa Bay continues to drop a couple games and the Saints can beat them a second time. But to me, it's a no-brainer for them to go after him.
Yeah, I agree. And the Raiders probably crossed them off because they just landed DeSean Jackson. Although I don't know if that's really moving the needle that much these days, but we'll see. You look at Green Bay. That would be like if I have OBJ in a fantasy league, I want him going there. I think that would be the best quarterback, least competition from a number 2 standpoint there, opposite Devontae Adams, who's going to draw all the top coverage. that'd be a pretty good landing spot. Kansas City, I like seeing him there. Even though I think the Chiefs are a little broken right now, I think he'd be the number 2 receiver that they can't seem. I don't think McCole Hardman's happening. I think we've tried to make that happen a lot. I don't think that's happening. I wonder what. I think New England's making a push for him, and Belichick's surprised us before many times, but I don't know if they have the type of offense that I like for him. And then finally Seattle, I just think that he's a third wheel, and that's probably I put him behind all those other options in terms of fantasy value.
He's a third wheel, but there aren't many teams that. I mean, he's a third wheel, but most teams need a third wheel. So
That's
I
true.
guess I like Seattle more from a team fit because they don't have a very balanced passing game. It's DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, or bust. They've done a terrible job of getting Will Dissly and Gerald Everett involved thus far.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't love it from, so given that, the Seahawks need him because they need somebody else to be involved regularly in the passing game to where it's not just DK and Tyler. Now, I don't know if I love the fantasy fit there because you're not, it's probably going to be a very kind of up and down. It's hard to even get Tyler Lockett for them to be a week-to-week fantasy performer. Tyler Lockett's ceiling is so low, or his floor is so low, I should say. His ceiling is super high on a week-to-week basis,
right.
But as we've seen, he puts up duds on a fairly regular basis and has for a couple of years now. So from a fantasy standpoint, would love to see Kansas City, agreed. Would love to see Green Bay. The best, I think, is New Orleans because I think that's the option for the most volume. Then football-wise, I think the Seahawks would also be a good fit.
Yeah, I think so too. It's funny. They spent the draft pick on Eskridge, the Rams on Atwell, and neither of them are doing anything. Now, Eskridge has been hurt a lot, but when you have a finite number of early draft picks and you spend them on a wide receiver you don't even use, it's remarkable that they're
not
where
great.
they're at. Yeah,
not great
at all. Let's talk a little bit Dalvin Cook. It's a dicey issue. Drew Davenport from Football Guys, we had him on a week ago. He had a really good thread on that situation there. Right now, what we know is there's a civil case pending. There's not a criminal charges pending right now. He is practicing with the team. He met with reporters today. He is pushing back against the accusations. So for what we know, he's probably going to play this week. I think we kind of have to address it like that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a need to dive into the weeds too far other than saying if he's starting, you're playing him. From a betting standpoint, I don't know if he moves the needle a lot because Alexander Mattison has shown that he can produce at a near on par level as Dalvin Cook. Mm-hmm. So I think right now they're 2-point dogs against the Chargers. It's a game I'm avoiding altogether because I think that both teams are very unreliable. The Chargers running defense is bad, and it's been bad for a while. They just got torn up by Jordan Howard and Boston Scott. For the Eagles. So, I mean, that's a dream matchup if you have Alexander Mattison and Dalvin Cook ends up not playing. If Dalvin Cook plays, it's a no-brainer that he's in your lineup.
Yeah, I still go back to that Cleveland Chargers game where, the Browns ran for like 300 yards. Of course, the Browns couldn't stop the Chargers either. So it was an entirely fun game to watch. It was like a Big 12 game. But want a little bit more of that in the NFL every once in a while. But
I agree. Shootouts are always fun.
Indeed. A couple other notes before we move on, but James Robinson didn't practice today. There was talk that he was going to be able to come back from the heel injury. I would have expected him to at least get a limited practice, but he did another DNP. We'll watch that one closely because there is a big qualitative difference between he and Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, you're not playing Carlos Hyde ever.
Yeah.
It's just this game script is always going to be negative, and even when it's not, they're going to have a hard time moving the football, converting on third downs. Their receivers can't catch a cold. There's no reason to even bother. But yeah, foot and heel included, toe, foot, heel injuries can be really tricky and then can linger. And then it feels like it's different for every player. Some guys come back real quick or can play through it. Some guys can't. And so it all depends on a player by player case, but yeah, his injury it's much different than obviously the Dalvin Cook situation where if Dalvin Cook's not playing, you're plug and playing Alexander Mattison, expecting RB1 production and likely going to get it. If James Robinson isn't playing, you're looking elsewhere on your roster or in free agency to find somebody to play elsewhere because it's just you can't count on any production from Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, that's right. We got a bit of a bombshell yesterday. Nick Chubb going on COVID IR, positive test. He is vaccinated, so there's a chance that he comes back this week, but it seems unlikely given all the other cases that we've seen so far. Dearness Johnson is also, I feel like he's a bit of a plug and play too.
Absolutely. And that offense, certainly. I'm all in on that running game, and why not? I mean, Ernest Johnson carried that team without Baker Mayfield. So they're looking at that game saying, we'll make Case Keenum beat us. And they couldn't stop Ernest Johnson. And so, that's another guy where, you love him stashed on your bench, and you can take advantage, you hope, if Nick Chubb doesn't play. From a betting standpoint, I really like the Browns at -2. What's interesting is it's already gone, +2. It's already gone down to +1. So even without potentially Chubb playing, the line is moving more towards a pick 'em with money coming in on Cleveland. I just feel like they've been a team that's underperformed. You saw what that defense can look like when the pass rush is married to the coverage, and that secondary, when it's playing well, is arguably the best in football with Greg Newsome, the rookie.
Northwestern, by the way. Yeah.
Yes. There we go.
Yeah.
Obviously, Denzel Ward, John Johnson, and Troy Hill were tremendous last week against the Bengals. And you have Myles Garrett, who's a defensive player of the year. So even without Chubb, I mean, I'm in on this team. I'm pulling for this team. I've always loved Baker Mayfield. I've got blinders on for him, certainly. But this should be a really fun game between the Pats and Browns this weekend.
Are you an Oklahoma guy?
No, I just like Baker's
you
swag.
Just like
I like guys who enjoy playing the game and are fun, and I just don't get caught up in the what about the children takes, that the taunting penalties drive me nuts. I love bat flips in baseball. If you're gonna be going up to Baker Mayfield for the coin toss and not shake his hand, and then deliver a late hit, and then go on to give up 50 points and get absolutely blitzed, and he's gonna grab his junk and look at you across the sideline, I'm on Team Baker there. Is it I don't need all of my players to be Boy Scouts. Everything I see is he's a good dude. He stays out of trouble, but he's got some swag, and I like the fire he plays with. I still
remember planting the flag in Columbus in the Ohio State game.
Bold move. And if you hate him, that's okay. He's just one of those guys. You love him or hate him, and I've always enjoyed Baker.
You had to love that.
His commercials are pretty elite.
Yeah, you had to love that travesty on Monday night there with the Bears and Steelers, huh? Just to get another taunting penalty that just decided a game. It's just crazy.
Come on, Jeff. Can for a second we go on this path? So this guy, Cassius Marsh, who has been kind of a journeyman.
Yeah.
He was on the Steelers last year. He just gets called up from the practice squad. He gets a big third down sack against his former team at Heinz Field, does his sweet spin kick, which is dope and athletic. I wish I could do. And then just gives a little what's up, Mike Tomlin? And then goes back to the sideline. Doesn't say anything. Didn't get anyone's face. Wasn't flexing. Just a little bit, yeah. Here I am. Look, probably finding his D-line coach that, he probably hated from a year ago.
Right.
Come on, man. It's the same thing when it was the Astros were in the playoffs. Who'd they play I think it was Boston. They played in the ALCS. And Carlos Correa does the Dame time, look at the watch thing. And I think it was Eduardo Rodriguez got him out, kind of looks
did the watch thing too.
This as he walked. And Alex Cora is lighting him up, and it's come on, to credit where credit's due, Carlos Correa was I loved it. That was awesome. He did my thing. He did my move to me. Well, there was a couple other instances of someone does this kind of, I don't know. I love all of that. Don't get mad, get even. Go get a sack and flex on them again.
Yeah, and they're just having fun. I mean, it's
not
like they're injuring them. Yeah.
And then for Mike Tomlin to come out after the game and be we got to clean up the game. The kids are watching. It's you know what? I'm not a parent yet, but I feel pretty confident if I'm a dad and my son wants to say, yeah, but this guy did that. It's that guy's in the NFL. You get to the NFL, you can do that. You got some work to do first. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I am a dad. I have teenagers, and I'm oh, they stared at me. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Go make the next play. That's what you're going to go do.
I just hate how as adults we have this well, what about the kids? It's what about their parents? There's more responsibility on parents than there should be for these athletes to be, choir boys each and every time they step onto the field in an emotional game and big moments. I just don't get it. That's my soapbox. I'm going to get off. We can continue down your script. and what you want to go over, man. But oh gosh, it just drives me nuts.
I will say I'm in lockstep with you. I like Mike Tomlin, even though I'm a Bengals fan. The Steelers are not choir boys. That's the hypocrisy of that stance. That's the thing I really hate about it.
No one gets more hyped
Art
after a
Rooney
sack than
stance is
TJ
what
Watt.
this is. Yeah,
Ridiculous.
this is an Art Rooney stance, is what this is.
Let's make it clear from the ref that he didn't.
Yeah, that was
feel.
a nice touch. Yeah, that was a nice touch too.
Stupid.
Yeah. Hey, I'm here with Joe Fann from WinBet, and if there's one thing we appreciate here at Rotowire, it's making good decisions, and even more so, making the right decision. Listen up, folks. I have an incredible offer for you with Rotowire's newest partner, WinBet, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WinBet is now the exclusive sponsor for Rotowire's fantasy podcast. WinBet brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, money line bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WinBet's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WinBet is now available in 7 states: Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WinBet, the possibilities are limitless. WinBet is currently offering all Rotowire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WinBet now. That's WYNNBET. WinBet, the exclusive partner for Rotowire's fantasy podcasts. Joe, one thing about you're up to 7. You got Arizona. I was in Arizona a couple weeks ago and I was seeing signs all over the place. Arizona used to be like the toughest place to do anything. You couldn't do high stakes fantasy. You couldn't do the NFFC and NFBC. Poker was like a death. It was terrible unless you were in an Indian casino. All of a sudden now, Arizona, come on down. Let's do this here. I saw billboards everywhere. It's crazy.
It's funny because we launched in Arizona right at the start of the season, and the Cardinals, of course, go on that run where they're 7-0 to start the season, or 6-0, wherever they're on. I mean, we're 7-0, lost the game. Now they're 8-1. Regardless,
yeah,
we got smoked. I know our book just got killed because you look at the consensus handle of whatever, but Arizona's accounted for so much of our book and they've been backing their Cardinals, and the Cardinals have been crushing it. So that's been kind of a fun storyline. I post a podcast like I'm part of the public. You know what I mean? I'm not part of the book or odds maker or whatever. I'm just kind of throwing darts like everybody else. But we open in Arizona. The Arizona guys goes on this big tear, and they've been smoking the book. So good for all of our users in Arizona. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. I guess are just a little bit closer, I could take advantage of that. I live near LA, basically. So
okay,
California, we're going to be one of the last places.
Great area. I'm a Chapman University alum, so I know LA
cool.
pretty well.
Yeah. I live near Pasadena. I'm in Monrovia, about 15 minutes from the Rose Bowl. But it's going to be a while. It's just the way the varying lobbying interests are. I think we'll be one of the last states, unfortunately. But here's hoping. Maybe that changes. How long have you been with WinBet? I know you used to cover the Seahawks, but how long have you been doing the podcast and doing brand ambassador for WinBet?
Just like a little over 2 months. I showed up September 1, took the job like late August, and I moved quick. It all happened really fast. It's a little bit of a pivot. Like you mentioned, I was in the beat reporting game before. I worked for NBC Sports Northwest that actually no longer exists. They got shut down. So I was a free agent looking for what to do. Got connected with Blue Wire Pods and WinBet, and this came together really fast, and it's been really fun so far.
Nice.
I kind of, again, I like to be the sports guy who bets as opposed to the betting guy who talks sports. I don't pretend to be as sharp or anything. But it's fun. It's entertainment, and I've really enjoyed it so far. We have this beautiful studio in the Wynn, right next to the buffet. It's got kind of glass windows so you can wave and check it out. We've got speakers out there, so when we're doing the show, people can walk by and kick it for a second. We'll have guests in. We had a couple Saturdays ago, we had Chris Long and Chris Carter in town, and they were in the studio. So we had a bunch of kind of viewing audience, which was neat. So yeah, it's been fun. Living in Vegas is an adjustment, but that's been fun as well. And so, man, no complaints so far. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, a little bit warmer than the Pacific Northwest, I imagine.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, before I came, I got 9 holes of golf in today in like 75-degree weather, and it's November 10th. So, again, very lucky.
That's what. Yeah, we were going to do a 7:30 a.m. podcast, but this works better for the golf game for sure.
Yeah, no, I had another. I forgot I have a weekly radio hit in Vancouver, BC, and then I got 9 holes in, and then now we're here and ready to go. So we're getting a productive day, not a moment to waste.
It's a nice living we have. That we.
It does, yeah, absolutely.
Write and talk about sports for a living. It's all good. That's all good.
Yep.
So were you anywhere else before covering the Seahawks and Mariners and all that in the Pacific Northwest? Was there any other
Yeah,
market you covered?
I've moved around a lot. After college, I went back to Seattle. I interned for the Seahawks in 2013.
Okay.
I worked at the University of Washington as a PA announcer for a couple of years. In 2014, I went to the Titans. I worked for their team website for a season. Then I went and worked for the Niners for 4.5 years, from 2015 to 2018, and was their senior reporter. And then I bounced from the team side to the network side with NBC Sports Northwest. Went back to Seattle, covered the Seahawks for 2 years, and then now I'm in Vegas. So I've moved around quite a bit. Bit of a nomad.
You've seen it from different angles. Then you've covered it like representing the team, and then you've covered it as media member there. I like that. There, you get to see kind of how the sausage is made.
I've seen it all, and the team side jobs are really great. When it's a great way to get reps, and you're kind of around it, learning how to be a beat writer. But there's obviously some shackles there in terms of who pays your bills, and that I think goes without saying. And so getting an opportunity to work on the network side, kind of allows you to kind of flex your analytical and opinionated muscles a bit. And I really enjoyed that. So, I still try to kind of carry that personality and all that into what I do now. And, it's super fun to kind of be more focused on the gambling space and gambling and fantasy. I mean, it all kind of goes hand in hand.
It sure does. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up today, is because there is a significant overlap. It's something that in the fantasy world, we used to deny it a little bit. We started our company back in '97. So we've been around the block dealing with the issues. At one point in time, the leagues were like, no, fantasy, we can't talk about fantasy because that's gambling. And then they're like, oh, okay, maybe we can talk about fantasy and maybe this DFS thing, as long as we make sure it's a skill game and not gambling. And now it's like, hey, the official network of MLB, the official, gaming company of the NFL, it's gone full circle. It's really interesting to see the evolution.
Yeah, the logic of like fantasy being so much more skill than betting. I mean, it's all so luck driven. Not to say there's no skill, but like I think there's skill on both sides. Regardless, yeah, like who wants to be in a fantasy league with no stakes? Like that's no fun. So yeah, I mean, the bigger the buy-in, the more you're invested, and to me, the more fun it is. So, and you look at matchups. You're looking at matchups and what game you want to bet on. Again, it goes hand in hand with fantasy. Like if you're looking at, I kind of like the Vikings because the Chargers can't stop the run. The Vikings, getting points will be able to control the clock. Whatever the case may be. Okay, well, what does that mean from a fantasy perspective, and which players are going to be able to capitalize on that? So, there is a lot of crossover, certainly.
Yeah. And one thing is I haven't gone like head first into like in betting, in part because of lack of access and in part because I'm in like 17 fantasy leagues. So I don't crave any additional action. But there's ranking players and looking at player props and doing projections for players. I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, it's similar to what they do there. So I can see a huge overlap as far as that goes.
Player props are super fun. They're definitely addicting. It's easy to like get down a rabbit hole of like, I like 30 of them. I played 10 NBA player props today. Because you go down and you look through them all. And Wednesday's a huge night for NBA. And so you look through the slate and you're like, God, all of these I feel good about, whether it's the trends, the matchup, all of it. And so, but it's, it's easy to get carried away with where you're like, I don't really know who's going to win, but I feel really good about this particular person having a good game. And so they're a really fun way to bet.
Yeah, it's funny. WinBet just tweeted out your video on your nine player props from you tonight for tonight's slate. That's so funny. It just came across my feed on TweetDeck there.
Okay.
So do you feel like you have a specialty? Is there a sport that you're better at? Is there a type of prop that you're better at? What are you best at?
What am I best at? My goodness. I don't know. I don't know how I'm best at anything, like jack of all trades, master of none. I'm certainly an NFL guy. Covering the league for 7 years, I would say my expertise is in the NFL. I love hoops, and I love the NBA. I don't have a team anymore because the Sonics are gone, obviously. And so, and I think NBA player props keep me engaged with the league more there. But I would say the NFL certainly is my bread and butter.
Have you adopted hockey at all with the Kraken coming to Seattle?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I don't understand it really. Yeah, I'm learning, but they were actually in Vegas last night, and they played their franchise opener in Vegas, and so I've actually seen a couple of games already. But I love hockey. It's super fun. Didn't grow up with it to where I wouldn't say I can really talk about it, but it's also it's fun to like know what you don't know and then have
Yeah.
conversations accordingly. For one of our podcasts, we had Andreas Hale, who hosts the Corner podcast on Blue Wire. It's a fighting podcast, and I don't really know anything about fighting, but we
Right.
had him on to discuss the Fury Wilder fight. And it's so fun where like a lot of times a lot of people come on and I'm sharing opinions and asking if they agree with my opinions and whatever. But it's fun to have conversations where you come from a novice standpoint and a lot of your listeners don't really know anything about it either, to where you can ask questions where everyone's learning. And like, it's okay to not be an expert on anything. And I'd rather go with that approach than pretend or fake it till you make it that like, oh yeah, I'm really confident that,
Right.
this is the tail of the tape for Fury Wilder. I was like, I don't know, but like, I want to learn. I'm excited to watch the fight. And so having those conversations can be a really fun part of this industry as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm that way at the fight game as well, and certainly with MMA, I never really got into that. But we cover it as a site, so every once in a while I have Jake Latarski on from Rotowire. He does some of our football pods, but he also runs our MMA coverage. And I think it was one of the McGregor fights, and I just learn from him, and it makes you want, and we happened to be in Vegas at the time. It was for an industry event, for a fantasy sports industry event. And so we just did a podcast, or it was actually not a podcast, but it was the Sirius XM show that we do. And I had him on as my co-host that day. And we spent a couple good segments talking about that. It's like, now I'm interested a little bit. Now I want to go get something on it there a little. I'm like, wait, you still don't know anything. You only know a little scintilla of knowledge, but
and that's the fun of it, Yeah, totally.
It is. We're going to talk about Week 10 in a second here, but first, a quick note from our friends at Yahoo. The NFL season is heating up, and Yahoo is going big on daily fantasy football this season. There will be a ton of big prize contests throughout the year on Yahoo, including their multi-entry contest now being shark-free. To celebrate Yahoo going big on DFS, as well as Yahoo Daily Fantasy becoming shark-free, Yahoo is giving all users the opportunity to claim free $10 in site credit. Users can take advantage of this free $10 site credit offer to join any paid contest, including Yahoo's biggest contests, the weekly $1 million DFS NFL Baller Contest. The weekly $1 million contest features $1 million in total prizes, including first place receiving $100,000 and tons of overlay and prizes. Play daily fantasy football on Yahoo this season. Visit sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy/welcome to claim the free $10 offer to get started. Jeff Erickson here with Joe Fann from Wynn Bet, our exclusive sponsor to Rotowire's fantasy podcast all season long. Looking at Week 10, it's kind of a weird week. I was doing my rankings, like, I really don't like a lot of these matchups. For one, you mentioned this earlier. Who's good anymore? Team-wise, especially at the team level in the AFC. I trust in the Bills, fine. They go and lose to Jacksonville and score 6 points. I know you're missing 2 offensive linemen, but what happened there?
What's funny is I was actually going through this when I was doing my power rankings yesterday. Maybe it was Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at teams that haven't had that dud yet, haven't laid the egg comprehensively throughout a game, the Colts are one of the most consistent teams in football. They're competitive on a week-to-week basis. They haven't gotten boat raced yet, I don't think. I guess the Seattle game wasn't super close. But beyond that, I think they have had a chance to win in all of them against good teams. Outside of that, every team feels like they've had their clunker. You'd probably put Arizona in that same category with Indy.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's a comprehensively bad performance from the Bills, a dominant defensive performance with 20-plus pressures from the Jags defense that no one could have saw that coming. There's just no chance, because the week prior they got torched by Geno Smith. So how on earth are they shutting down Josh Allen to where they only got in the red zone one time, and that was on their first possession of the game?
They got down to the 3-yard line and went backward too.
Yeah, every time they crossed midfield, they were taking a sack or having a negative play. So Josh Allen has regressed in terms of his short and intermediate accuracy. The flow of the offense isn't there to where everything is scramble drill. It's evading the pocket, very much like what you're seeing in Kansas City right now, in my opinion. And then the offensive line just got whipped absolutely and comprehensively throughout the entire game. So an ugly game from the Bills, who, if you look at it, haven't really beat anybody. They don't have a signature win. Winning by 18 against the Colts, I guess, is one. But again, go back to are the Colts even good? Had a chance to against Tennessee, but fell short. Literally fell short with Josh Allen slipping on that 4th-and-1 sneak.
That's right.
So I think the Bills will be fine, but I mean, it's an inexcusable loss. There's just no justifying it.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing. Like, it's a little sliding door thing. Gabe Davis drops a ball on 2nd and 7. On 3rd and 7, they have the big sack. 4th down, they turn over on downs, and the game's over. Basically, I mean, they were gonna be in the red zone there, but they dropped a simple ball. But that's the fine line. But the problem is when you need that one play to work for it to change everything. That just shows what happened there. It was a weird thing. So this week they go to face the Jets, and the Jets have shown life the last 2 weeks. It's a big line though, still, even though it's a road game. It's not much of a road game. It's down the road, and let's face it, the Jets and the Giants have had precious little home field advantage over the last few years. But I was surprised to see such a big total on this, or a big line on this one here. What was your reaction to this game?
Yeah, it just goes to show you that Vegas isn't thinking anything of that Jags loss.
Right.
That's just saying, hey, we're going to give them a pass and move on, because they know that they're going to take Bills money regardless against the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of protection built in for books. And that's been really fun learning about that side of it and why they make the lines the way they do and how they move it and all of that, and trying to limit their liability on one side. If they were to make this anything under, what'd you say? It's 11?
I think it's 13 even.
It might be 13. If they were to get it anywhere near 10,
yeah,
every single dollar coming in would be on the Bills. So we did find out that Mike White's going to play. Isn't it crazy that last Thursday we all collectively lost our interest in a primetime game because Mike White got hurt? Right. That's insane.
The guy we hadn't heard of 2 weeks ago.
Season. Yeah. So I'm not going to bet it. I'm going to leave it alone. But I understand. I get why it's so high.
So it's funny. My co-host Chris Liss and I, we do a thing on SiriusXM called Guess the Lines on Tuesday. I shelter myself, try to get in like an isolation booth, and we try to guess what the line's going to be for each team. It's a good exercise because we do have also calling staff picks later on, and helps us make our decision. So try to guess what the line's going to be, what the line you're going to set is, and guess the total. I set it at 8 at first. I was way off, and it was like, what am I missing? And now I kind of know a little bit now what I'm missing. I know a little bit more about the sausage being made. I'm not sure I like it, but
it might not be that you are missing anything, but there's just no way a book is going to put it under 10 because the Bills would just get absolutely hammered. And then all of a sudden you have all this liability on a terrible Jets team.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's one thing I'm noticing this year is the favorites are more favored by more this year, because early on, first 7-8 weeks, I mean, they were covering consistently. I mean, the
books were getting smashed. Yeah. They've gotten it back the last 2 weeks, though.
They have. They really have. So I don't know. Maybe that's the right instinct, is to go the other way now. But we'll see about that one there. But that was one that caught my eye. It's not a game that everyone's eager to bet, but it's just one that caught my eye. Another interesting thing is to try to judge is teams coming off of a bye. We didn't mention Chris Godwin earlier. He missed practice today with a foot injury. I know they're not going to have Antonio Brown, but the Bucs are coming off the bye. They had the hiccup against the Saints, but I mean, you can almost see that one coming a little bit. Everything was going well. They're facing a tough division opponent on the road. Now they're back out of the division against, a proverbial patsy. What's your take on this game?
Yeah, I mean, take the Pats. Again, it's always hard to bet big spreads because you just worry about getting beat in the backdoor cover. I like that it's 10 and not 10.5, so you can push there. Washington's bad, and I don't see them getting any better. Washington's defense is the most disappointing and underwhelming unit in all of football. If you're talking an offensive defense throughout the entire league, this is right. I think everyone expected this to be a top 5 group, and they've been quite literally a bottom 3 group against the pass, and they've been terrible. So they have no chance. Taylor Heineke's fun in spurts, but turns the ball over a lot. I have no idea how you would feel confident even getting to 10 points and betting Washington here. To me, you bet the Bucs in a teaser, get it 6 points down to 4, maybe feel better about that, get it through 7 at least. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to take a side, you take the 10 with the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, I still think back to the Green Bay game for Washington there, and then what a miracle it was for the Packers to cover. They got outgained by a wide margin because every time that the football team got in the red zone, it was just a carnival of errors.
Yeah, I mean, Washington should have covered the last couple of games. I mean, between their red zone woes and missed kicks, turnovers in the red zone, it's been really bad. So they've had their chances, and they'll probably have their chances in that one too, especially late to where, they're down 14 with the ball and you're holding a Bucks ticket thinking, gosh, here we go. I'm going to get killed in the back door. So I will be avoiding it. But yeah, lots of big lines this week and big numbers.
Indeed. We'll talk about a game with a smaller number, but first, a quick note from our friends at Thrive. Thrive is back for another season of fantasy football, and they're running huge guaranteed contests each week this NFL season. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up today and get a free 6-month Rotowire subscription. Here's how you claim your free Rotowire subscription. 1. Visit rotowire.com/thrive. 2. Deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. 3. Play in your first paid contest and receive a free 6-month Rotowire subscription. It's that easy. Big thanks to Thrive. Big thanks to our Blue Wire Network sponsors as well. Jeff Erickson here with Joe Fann from Bet to Win and the Wynn Bet and WinBet.com. Game that probably will be of more interest to you here, Joe, is Seattle Green Bay. Russell Wilson coming off IR, most likely get full practice today. Aaron Rodgers, I'm assuming he's going to play. I know there's some little boxes he has to check on Saturday as he comes back from the COVID IR, but from all intents and purposes, I'm expecting him to play too. And one of these teams might have OBJ too.
Yeah, right now this line has moved from Seahawks or Packers -4 to the Packers -3.5. So a little bit of money coming in on the Seahawks. Who knows what to expect from Russell Wilson after the hiatus with the injury on his throwing hand. Everything we've seen in terms of reports from my buddies out in Seattle is that looks good. He's fully cleared. There is no brace. There is no bandage. He is all systems go. You like the Seahawks getting a lot of points there. What to expect from the defense? Who knows? They've been better of late, but they've also kind of beaten up on bad teams in terms of, the Saints aren't that good. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't that good. And the Jags, obviously, we know what they have, which isn't much. Those are 3 good games from the defense in a row, but I think everyone's still skeptical. And it's like, all right, well, what's it going to look like against Aaron Rodgers? And so that to me is, I think it's worthwhile to get a little bit of money on the Seahawks just in case Aaron Rodgers doesn't play. Like that's out there. Right. That's a possibility. It's not a foregone conclusion that he does play. And even if he does, 3.5 with Russell Wilson back, I think is super, doable. So, yeah, I think I'd lean taking points with Seattle here.
Yeah, massive qualitative difference between the starters and the backups here on both teams. We saw Jordan Love and not ready for prime time in that Kansas City game. What we thought was going to be an easy matchup, and he really couldn't get untracked at all. Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting one. It could be. We've been deprived of premium matchups the last 2 weeks with Green Bay. First against Arizona, no Devontae Adams, though they still prevailed, and then of course last week, with no Rodgers. I mean, I want to see them get challenged by the best, with the best players on both teams playing. Is that so much to ask?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And so, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers plays, this should be a really good one. The Seahawks have to have it at 3-5. They're chasing a wild card spot right now with Atlanta in front of them. The NFC is a mess at the back end of those top teams. So they're still in the thick of it. And with Russell Wilson coming back, if they can get things going, if the defense is truly better than it was the early part of the season and actually has taken strides, then this is a team that should be in the wild card.
Yeah. AFC West is unsettled. All 4 teams are above 500, but they all look flawed too. The Raiders obviously are dealing with a lot right now. Like they got beat by the Giants last week. The Chiefs look like a shadow of their former self. They won 1 game in conference. They're 1-4 in conference. I think they're 0-1 in their division. This is a big game with them going to Vegas.
It's huge. And Vegas getting points at home. I like Vegas. Again, I can depend on that defensive line. Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue have been tremendous.
Yes, they have.
I like Derek Carr. He's had a great season. He really struggled last week. They should have won that game. They only lost by a touchdown, and they missed a chip shot field goal, went 1 for 6 in the red zone. Derek Carr threw a pick six. He missed a layup touchdown to Darren Waller. The list goes on, and they still only lost by a touchdown. I like them in this game. I like them being at home. Any time a home team's getting points, you have to look hard at it. And for me, the Chiefs to continually be favorites, I think, again, it goes back to bettors are always going to come to the window to bet Chiefs. No matter what's happened, they've got blinders on and say Patrick Mahomes is going to win this weekend. And so that's largely why the line is the way it is. I like the Raiders here and will happily take the other side.
Yeah, and it's one of those where those same bettors like, well, look, it was -7 at the start of the year. It was -8, something like that. And look how much it's moved. It's already incorporated. It might not be. And I tend to agree with you on this one here. I like the Raiders side as well.
Yep.
Is there any other game on the slate that stands out to you as one that, like, hey, I'm really interested in this game. There's something that catches my eye. Maybe it's the Thursday night game. Maybe it's Lamar. Maybe anything of that nature. Before we sign out, is there anything that really catches your eye from this week?
Yeah, I'm looking through the slate now. To me, my game of the weekend is Browns Patriots. I'm really looking forward to that game, and I'm like a pseudo Browns fan. I don't even know why. I guess I went over it earlier, but I'm in on the Brownies.
Yep.
As a Mariners fan, I just kind of feel for Browns fans and all they've been through, so I'm pulling for them.
Okay.
I think Vikings Chargers will be entertaining. I'm not going to bet it because my biggest takeaway from the Vikings Eagles game last week, or not the Vikings Eagles, Chargers Eagles game last week, was thank goodness I didn't bet the game. So yeah, I think Raiders and Browns are my favorite underdogs of the week, and I think both of them will have a really good chance to win outright. And then I think my favorite of the week is the Titans at -3 at home. I love that number, keeping it away from the hook at 3.5. It's right at 3 on WinBet, and I'm happy to ride with the Titans.
All right, there you go. What do you got going on for your podcast tomorrow?
Yeah, previewing the slate here in week 10 now? Is that what it is? Gosh, this season's flying. So previewing week 10, we'll talk a little college football as well. I'll probably sprinkle in some NBA props, and should be a good time.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, I want to thank you for coming on board today, and good luck on the podcast. We'll have you on some other time soon.
Jeff, thanks so much, man. It's been a lot of fun.
You bet. Joe Fann, everybody. Follow him on Twitter, Joe_Fann. That's FANN, 2 N's. And of course, you probably know it. You're already watching his pod. You're listening to his pod, so check that out. We got tomorrow. We got Mario and John McKechnie tune in, previewing the Thursday game as well as the rest of the slate. Thanks for watching and or listening to the Rotowire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by WinBet. Have a great day.